Welcome to SOG TV. Today we can speak with Willie Montague from Orange County, Florida, who is not only a pastor, but he's also a politician in the area. And if you stick with us to the end, he's not only going to tell you how you can save America, but also how you can help save your neighbors as well. Hey, Willie Montague, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am always good. Now you got to. I'm a little slower on the language. Is it Montague?
Montague.
Montague.
Yes.
See, I've been pronouncing it wrong, thinking I was being fancy or something. Montague. All right. We've been talking for like at least through chat, like in the last year, 2 years, something like that. But you just was in an election not too long ago, weren't you?
Right. I was running for U.S. Congress for Florida's Congressional District 10. So it was definitely it was a 2.5 year journey for me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's a lot of people were in the election this time.
Yes, a lot of people, and I'm pretty sure a lot more coming up in 2024.
Yeah, it's one of the bad things when you want change, you end up getting a lot of people fighting for that change.
Right.
Which is it's good, but at the same time, people get drowned out a lot. You're a pastor, are you not? I mean, I assume I don't know if you actually pastor a church or if you're like I've known some traveling pastors.
Yeah, I do pastor church. I'm actually in the church right now. So.
Oh,
but yes, I do pastor. I actually been in ministry for about 20 years. I started when I was 14. So,
oh wow,
ministry that long, and pastor here in Orlando, Florida.
Wow, at 14 years old, you must have known early then. Were you raised in the church?
Actually, I was raised in the church. My great grandmother was a organist, and where we come from, you kind of rotate. So you go in between different churches, Methodist, Baptist, it didn't matter. You just would, rotate different Sundays. So I got to sit on the organist bench and listen. And that's how I pretty much was raised up. And my grandmother also had me in church since I was born. So.
Oh, wow. That's completely opposite of me. I didn't know. I went to church every once in a while, but that's because somebody felt sorry for the poor white kid down the street and took me to church. So I went to lots of different churches when I was a kid, but nothing really stuck until I was about 37 years old. So, now y'all's population of Florida has got to be growing quite a bit. I mean, because a lot of people are moving down there. I mean, a lot of people from New York, California. I mean, I have friends that have moved down there recently.
Right.
Could you tell me a little bit about this last hurricane? I know I'm jumping around quite a bit but we're on a short time frame and stuff, and I want to get as much in there as possible.
Well, the last hurricane we had was Ian. We are growing. We're growing about 1,000 per week, if I'm not mistaken. But the last hurricane, which was quite devastating, especially down in the Fort Myers area, even in parts of Orlando that people were surprised were flooded and some damage to homes. And so, Florida is growing. We do have a great governor, Ron DeSantis. We also have a Republican ran state legislation. And I believe that we're on the cusp of seeing this be a state where people are coming here not only for a change, not only because it's, as we call it, I like to call it a free-ish state of Florida. Still some things that I think needs to take place in Florida. But because there's a place to grow economically. And I believe that, especially as we have entered into 2023, I believe that what I've got through prayer is that we're in our expanded capacity, kind of like in the prayer of Jabez when it said, Lord, enlarge my territory, bless me indeed. And I feel like that's kind of where we are right now as a nation. And I believe that Florida is a pivotal state among other states that I believe are going to rise up.
Well, y'all have got. I was just thinking about this before we clicked on here. America is a melting pot. I mean, we all know that, but some places are a little more than others. Florida is. I mean, now I've only been into I call it the armpit of Florida, like Denton, Florida area. I've only Denison.
Yep.
I can't remember, but it's right there, right when you get through Georgia and stuff. You get right in at the beginning of it, but there are all types of dynamics of people. I mean, it's a very huge mixture,
right?
Which kind of tells you, I mean, if most of them are Republican conservatives, I mean, is that what you've noticed?
Yeah, we've had, I mean, of course, with us being considered a red state, we are seeing an influx of those who are Republican conservatives. But what I think that people have to realize is that when we look at elections and we look at overall, that we forget that we do it by numbers. So when you look at the whole population and then you do the statistics, you'll say it's a red state. So how I look at things is a little more narrow focus as far as how we need to address those counties. I've always been an individual that believes has been a straight shooter, blunt, right to the point. And so a lot of the counties that are very important to really having this state be in its prime are areas such as Miami-Dade, Broward, Orange County, where I live, and those counties that even over in Osceola, I believe it is Osceola Polk, but those are counties that are considered blue. And I believe that with the influx coming in, we have an opportunity to change that, but it has to be feet on the ground, boots out, working, knocking doors, and doing those things that's necessary to really flip it. Because I want the whole entire state, not just because it's the population as a whole, but because literally every county is represented by conservative values.
Yeah, exactly. They what I've noticed, because I grew up thinking I was a Democrat. I mean, I really did. I was always told Democrats are for the poor people and Republicans are for the rich people. And then it dawned on me one day during the Obama administration that, wait, all politicians are pretty much rich compared to us. So, I mean, that can't really necessarily be true. And then I noticed, paying attention to Obama, right, that's not what I believe in. That's not what I agree with. I was a cop. I was like, we're not going to take anybody's guns. That's stupid. That would increase the crime rate. But I've noticed that my story isn't special. A lot of people think that their belief system is one thing, as in they know their belief system, but they think it's represented by Democrats or Republicans, and it's not. It's and is that what you've seen, that you've got a lot of people that really think they're one, but they're actually the other?
Yeah, yes, and I believe that comes from the lack of education. But again, so I'm an individual that really believe that. Now, I've been with the Republican Party since I was 14 as well, so I've been in politics and ministry likewise the same duration. But my belief system with that is that as much as we hold accountable those who are radical left, those who are against the Constitution, those who are against the Word of God, we have to also hold accountable those who are within, because in reach comes before outreach. And so if we understand that within our own party, we have the ability to do more. So, education education is very important. How do we engage? How do we get involved? How do we get into the community? How do we do voter registration? How do we do voter engagement? How do we get involved so that when election time comes, the what is inside the heart of a person becomes what they also vote for, and not just, that's how they feel, but their pen is not going to go that way. And that's why we see people who their mind say one thing or their heart says one thing, but as soon as it's time to get to the election poll, on election day, it's totally opposite. And that's what we got to really change. We have to have the two match up, or we'll continue to see some of the elections we do, because people get tired. And so we need to flip that piece there. And I think that comes back on us, as Republicans, and what we can do to bring that education piece so that we don't have that wishy-washy going on.
Do you think it'd be better to approach it from a grand scale, just like a blanket, like educating, like on advertisements, or do you think it should be on more of a intimate talk, as discussion with people, like having small groups go and talk to people, go into the impoverished areas of the neighborhoods? I mean, they vote. A lot of people don't realize it, but they vote. Especially the older generation and stuff, but they only watch the news.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So I'll tell you what I'm working on here in Orlando. Back during my time of campaigning, I went around to different businesses to hand out, campaign literature. And we stumbled upon a place that is like a mall. It's kind of like a flea marketplace, but it's a whole building with its own little areas that people can rent out spaces. But it's not just spaces outside. It's like literally inside with its own closed doors. Yeah. And so, I'm like, I think we can do something with this. I think we need to get us a spot. So we inquired about the pricing. We immediately went and got the spot. And we started to turn that into, instead of it being our campaign headquarters, it is our campaign headquarters, but instead of it being our campaign headquarters, we wanted to have something different. I didn't want this to be Willie Montague for Congress. And so what we did is we developed the Frederick Douglass Center. And so the Frederick Douglass Center, even after not being successful with the primary, we kept it. And so we decided to turn that into a 501c3. So right after that, we started working on that. The Frederick Douglass Center is a resource hub. So we help with pregnancy tests, parenting, single parenting classes, HIV and STI testing. We start doing, education pieces, financial literacy, and then how we turn that around to fit. We, after, a few months, but we finally were able to get our voter registration ID for our Frederick Douglass PAC. So the PAC is now able to register voters in all 67 counties. And so we merged that as our political arm of the Frederick Douglass Center. So when we talk about the resources and they see the resources we're given, they see people of color who are looking like them, and we're out in these inner city communities, well, we can pop and say, hey, we need you to register to vote. I'm a Republican, and you see the service that we're offering, but this is what wants to be taken away from you, and it's not the party that you think that is trying to take it away from you. We need you to register. And so I think that so my goal is to have a Frederick Douglass hub in every county before the end of 2023. So that's how I'm going about changing that mindset, making it so that it's delivered in a way where it's not just, hey, I'm a Republican, you need to register to vote as a Republican. It's more of, let's bring a little bit of honey. Let's have a discussion. Let's talk about the needs of the community, but let's tell you why these needs can really be met by you being part of the party that really is for you and not against you.
No, that's actually an excellent idea. I mean, I'd like to say that I thought of that, but I did not. I don't think that would just be a Florida thing. I think something like that, because what I've noticed is a lot of politicians give a lot of lip service, and Republicans are bad about that. They'll explain why they're better because they're so haughty about it, as in, oh, well, we're obviously, look at the facts, and we think the facts are going to win. People that are struggling, they don't really care about that. They care about, how are you going to help me? It's kind of like, I use the example a lot when it comes to healing people. If you heal somebody, if you pray for somebody and you ask for something, then, or ask, may I talk to you about Jesus and stuff like that? A lot of times they're like, wait, oh, you're trying to win something from me. You're trying to, but if you heal the flesh, the soul will follow.
Right.
And it
absolutely agree with that, because that's what I've been saying when I go to speak at Republican meetings, is that when we're out here canvassing, when we're talking, these individuals, they have no clue about what HR1 is. Most of the people have no clue what HR1 is. Most of the people don't know who the Speaker of the House is. Most of the people don't know that there's 435 members of Congress, and most people care not to know, but they do realize that at the gas pump, that they're paying more than they have ever paid before. They do realize that their neighborhoods are, filled with trash and need to be cleaned up. They do recognize the opioid crisis as drug overuse, I would say. And then they also recognize, when we went through especially pregnant mothers, expecting mothers, when they're seeing that there is a shortage with formula. And those who are carrying, having little small children, they're like, okay, what happens? That's the part. And I like to sum it up as quality of life. So, when I take my children to the park, I want to be able to have I don't want to see bullets flying by, while we're on the monkey bars, so those are things that I think that if we start addressing that way, as you just mentioned, take care of that flesh, the soul's going to follow. And that's very true, because many times we're thinking, and I love to say this, that, community development and socialism are not parallel. And that means that just because I'm developing my community, just because we're out having a barbecue, just because we're doing some hamburgers and hot dogs, that doesn't mean that I'm advertising or advocating for socialism and for the government to take over. No, I'm telling you that I don't want the government involved, but I want community involved, and the community is what brings about growth and brings about security and brings a calmness. But when I'm in a frantic whatever, I'm gonna go to the nearest person that feels like they're actually helping me, and that's how the Democrats win over in every situation, because they're touching the needs.
Yeah. Yeah, in everything you can think of, and even people that they're still being friends with somebody that's horrible people, but that friend is always providing something, making them feel good about something. That's what people, unfortunately, it's been proven in science. People will always choose nurture. We want to feel good about something, and I mean, it's like, look at they're pushing the EVs vehicles or electric vehicles, and they're selling it as in clean energy. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, most of these people don't research. Most people don't research. I'm like, clean energy, it's the dirtiest energy. I mean, one, they don't even think about where electricity comes from. But then, slave labor is what's creating these batteries. But it's not about facts. If it's about facts, we live in a completely different society.
Right.
But people need to feel like they're doing something.
Right.
And most people don't feel they don't. They feel like I remember the first time I ever bought groceries not using food stamps. I was 21 years old, something like that. And it scared the crap out of me, because I didn't know that you could do that. I was wondering, how do people get, but people that are on the other side have never been around that. They don't understand the mindset of people.
Right.
You need to, if somebody would have said, hey, no, this is how it really works. You can do it. You just have to set up this and this. Then I'm like, oh, well, I can do that. Instead of having somebody control you for the rest of your life.
Correct.
But no, I think that's excellent. I agree with you that, the Democrats, that's why they win a lot.
Yeah. Is
because they get down there and they get face to face with these people, and they know how to touch the fields.
Right. Yep.
And that's so.
And the best way to combat that, again, is get to the fields. Make an effort to have boots on the ground. And this is what I always say, is that we have to have a year-round approach, not just during the election cycle. I think that is the number one issue that I've seen, is that during the election cycle, we're literally like out there every single day till midnight. But when it's an off season, we're nowhere, it's like, well, we're tired. No, we have to keep going, because that's what the Democrats are doing. I mean, they're there every single month. They're registering voters. The NAACP is registering voters. The Urban League is registering voters. All these, and it's fine. It's great. They're doing their civic duties. However, when you look for us, we're not doing it because we can't. We have to just continue to go forward, and we have to go forth with energy, power, strength. Go in, fighting and not letting go, because that's the only way we're going to be able to win, coming up in these, next decade of elections.
Yeah. I've noticed that even before I got into politics is that 2 years of every 4-year cycle is nothing but campaigning. Mm. And the other 2 years, nobody knows what's going on.
Right.
I mean, you don't hear about anything. And people have a very short memory.
Right.
I mean, and not even just Democrat, the government has keyed in on that, because they'll change their story, days after they said something.
Right.
And they throw enough information out there that you don't even realize it unless you're paying attention. Right. Unless you're actually listening, because most people, they just read the headlines, and the whole story may say something completely different than the headlines, but everybody knows people just read the headlines. And Republicans aren't very good at being headliners. They just, or let me say, they're good at trying to make a headline, but when it comes to it, they only do it during them 2 years, and then they don't have substance during any of the other stuff. Or if they do, nobody knows about it. Right. Nobody knows what they're doing. It just doesn't make any sense. It's, and when I was actually in DC on the 6th, and one thing I came out of that learning was that 90% of government is corrupt. A lot of things happen way different than what is told, because none of that happened the way they explained it happened. But I also learned that even if all that goes south on the national scene, it's your local government that really builds the foundation. Right. That's more important. I mean, it's more important to me. It's more important to vote for the right superintendent than it is for the governor in a lot of times. Right. Because they're the ones who, we have kids that, I mean, I have a shirt that says "Pray like it's 1776." I have people legitimately ask me what happened in 1776. It never even occurred to me that people wouldn't even know what that means.
Scary.
Yeah. And I'm luckily, you also, we're kind of like you, except we also have outliers that don't follow the laws, but we're not a critical race theory state or anything like that. But there's some teachers that still teach it. I mean, we had a guy that was on Project Veritas not too long ago that was sitting there teaching kids about being Antifa, stuff like that. Right. Because they were getting into the schools. And I don't care if you go out and campaign all the time, you get everybody to understand what's really going on. If your kids aren't learning it, in a generation, everything you work for is going to be gone. Right. But what are you planning on sticking with politics or?
Oh yeah, I won't leave politics. As I said, I've been with I was for some years. So what I do outside of politics, I don't think many people even knew that, because I did some talking about it, but I was going so long. Is that, as I mentioned, we do Frederick Douglass, but I also run a nonprofit. I'm the founding president of House of Timothy. It is a nonprofit organization that works with youth, ages 7 to 25, youth and young adult men. And so we're working right now on opening up our second location after many years of praying to get a new location. And so we're working on opening that up, where we'll be working with rehabilitation of teens 13 to 17. So that is part of my priority for probably the next 6 months, but tied in with politics and speaking about that. But of course, fundraising and getting out with House of Timothy is very important to me right now. And I do plan on running again for 2024.
Good deal. I've known a few people that ran, and when they lose, they just stop. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense. I mean, speaking of Frederick Douglass, who is, Abraham Lincoln, who worked with Douglass a lot, lost all of his elections besides the presidency. Right. I mean, I think it's important to keep going, because what I've found is people don't really get to know who you are until probably about the second or third time that you run for something. There's going to be, I mean, I bet you when you run again, there's going to be people that never heard of you. Not because you weren't doing your job. It's just because that's society. Society doesn't pay attention. And so I think it is important, especially if you're actually somebody out there trying to help the community. You know, I've noticed a huge influx of a lot of pastors are running. I have a couple friends of mine that are running on the East Coast. Well, one, but they're pastors. I know a lot of pastors that are getting into politics. I had a friend here in Oklahoma who did it. But it's important because most people think of politics, but politicians as in politics, you know, that's all they do. All they do is know how to make money. And there's outliers. There's going to be a couple that are politicians that are actually doing something to help people. But a lot of them, I mean, what I get is that they're just there trying to shake hands with people and get richer. I mean, like Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's way richer than he was before he got into politics.
Well, you know, my first campaign was in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, for council. So, you know, I definitely, you know, stem from there, you know, being, you know, part of Rhema and so forth. So I definitely know the heartbeat that goes on. Yeah, definitely. It's a great state. You know, as it is one of the good states that we have in the union. So,
yeah, I call it a sleeper state because most people don't know much about Oklahoma. I mean, they know where it's at and stuff, but a lot goes on here. A lot of famous people come from Oklahoma, but it's because we put a lot of emphasis on raising kids with morals and values and ethics. Even your thugs, a lot of them have values and ethics. You know, they'll do the right thing. I mean, we had what was his name? Al Sharpton here a few years ago. Right. And he got ran out of North Tulsa, you know, trying to start people getting all rioted and stuff. But people knew what really happened. You know, they're not just going to but you will get them people that don't know and they're just angry. And I kind of feel for them because I understand they're being angry for something, but they don't know what to direct it on. And people like a nemesis. They like to be mad at somebody. Right. You know, and it's easier than to being mad at yourself. Right. But I wasn't for sure. I thought you'd at least been in Oklahoma for a while or something because you kind of have an accent sort of like ours.
7 years.
Yeah, it'll rub on you. You'll start speaking slower. I was in Wyoming. I was an officer up there, and the mayor came up to me and said, "Why do you talk so slow? Are you stupid?" And I said, "Nope. We talk like this so people like you can understand us." I mean, you know, people assume our accents it has something to do with our education, but it's just the way we talk. But I really wanted to get a chance to talk to you. I mean, I've been trying for a while, and I knew during the campaign it was going to be a little difficult, and I just revamped my podcast a little bit, changed the format so it's not just one way. I want to speak about everything, and honestly, you'd be a perfect person because of, you know, you don't just deal with the church. You don't just deal with politics, and you're actually in the people, and we don't have enough people that cross them lines. Right. You know, and I think it's very important. And I'm going to try to respect your time because I know you said you only had about 30 minutes.
Yeah, no problem. Always welcome to come back and share some more. And I love the talk. So we can't always be back.
Yeah, I've tried to follow you on social media and everything. What's a good if people wanted to contact you, find out more about what you're doing, donate? What's a good address or website?
houseoftimothy.org. That's houseoftimothy.org. So you can go there and you'll see everything that we're doing with the organization. Of course, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Willie Montague, Montague. You'll be able to find me up there.
Awesome, man. It has been a definite pleasure. I'll keep following you, keep stalking you, saying what you're saying and stuff. Hopefully you don't end up having to censor me because some of the stuff I say, but anyways, you have a blessed one. And again, it's a pleasure. And I may ask you to be on later again to find out what's going on next, because I'm sure you're not going to be stopping.
No problem. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for sticking around till the end. Hopefully, I left you either enlightened, lightened, or moved by the experience. If you enjoyed what you saw, could you hit that like and subscribe button right there? And if you didn't, could you still hit that like and subscribe button right there so somebody else has the opportunity to not like what they saw? Thank you.